Hey yo folks, welcome to the channel. Today we're looking at yet another LEGO Star Wars set. This time we're looking at LEGO set number 75362, Ahsoka Tano's T-6 Jedi Shuttle. This set released in 2023 with 4 minifigures, 601 pieces, all for the price of $80. Whew. This does have some pretty cool figures, as well as a pretty cool build. Now, we did get a similar vehicle during the whole Clone Wars craze, but which I do feel like is a bit superior in its own ways, but we will get to that into the review. Which actually, why don't we cut the chit-chat and get straight to the review right now. And here we have Ahsoka's T-6 Jedi Shuttle. We have gotten a Jedi Shuttle a lot similar to this in the past. However, if you've never seen that set or gotten it, you would think that this is just a pretty simple ship, but if you're like me and you have gotten it in the past, you'll notice that that ship is a lot bigger and a lot cheaper. This one being smaller and priced at $80, while that set was bigger slightly and priced at approximately $60. Wait, that set was $60? I could have sworn that was $50. But anyways, but still, the set is pretty good, though I do feel like it definitely should have been bigger. One thing I will point out is that this does have a little bit of interior over here. Just barely. While the older set had no interior over here. It was all cockpit. Another thing to point out with size comparisons is that, yeah, even though the old set's bigger, this is smaller, this definitely should have been a lot bigger, because you see this? This is meant to be a hatch that characters would get out. Yeah, I've seen several characters get out of this hatch in the show. One time, Ahsoka in the middle of a dogfight and with a cool spacesuit. Hopefully we get that as a minifigure. And that, of course, is a sticker. And you obviously see that we've got a few stickers on the wings and such. And on the back, you can see the engine, the thrusters or engines, whatever you want to call them. As well as this. This is supposed to be like a little gunner turret, where someone would go inside, kind of like what the Millennium Falcon has. And unlike the Millennium Falcon, there's no way you could like have a minifigure sat somewhere in the ship as if they were piloting it. No, there's nowhere to sit them. It's like, this isn't even big enough to fit a micro figure. But enough chitter chatter, let's continue. The wings are pretty well built, and they do have some good swooshability and some turnability. We're going to take a minute to look at the underneath, which is very barren. There's no, like, pieces to represent I feel like there should have been a little bit of piecework to maybe match it, because if I recall correctly, the underneath of the wings is like the top, but there's barely anything on the bottom of the wings, which you could see the landing gear right here, which in the original set, there was a bit of, like, a latch where you just, like, lift up and back to have it be able to stand, well, that, as well as keep the wings from moving around, which this cast does do the same. Which, it's pretty thin, which I do like that. It actually blends in well with the wing. Kinda, but, I mean, it's not as flat right here compared to here, but still, it does the job well. And even then, it still stands up. Even then, it kind of stands well, though. Don't push your luck with it, because it'll just, like that. But anyways, you can see these wings can just really go. Let me actually back the camera so that way you guys can get a proper look. Now we just lift up, and then you could just, look at that. The wings could just swoosh like that, like so, like it did in the show. Now and then, which is real cool. I think the other set did that too. Maybe it was a bit more slower, but it's been a while since I had that set. That set's in pieces right now. But anyways, let's get back to the set. Let's zoom back in to look at the sets and its inside. We're going to look at this side to show the interior. You could see some more stickers. It's mostly on the outside. There's nothing really inside, and as you can see, there's barely any interior to do anything. But you can at least store some weapons and stuff in here. Like, I believe you can put lightsabers in here. Let me bring Ahsoka in, for example, and you can just like that. Well, I could have swore it did it better, but maybe I'm doing it wrong. Yeah, you can't really fit any minifigures in here. You can't even seal properly, but let's take a look at the other side. You do got this little workbench sort of thing, which is meant for Huyang, this could be a bed, but again, it's too tight to be for a bed. And you only got a single stud in there, as you can see, which is meant to attach this little workbench type of thing, which I'm not sure what it's actually supposed to be, but I imagine it's supposed to be like Huyang's workbench says. In the show, there is a little area where he works on a lightsaber for a certain character who I won't name in this video for now, but you do get a wrench, which that's pretty cool. But anyways, I think it's time for us to focus on the cockpit, which another thing you notice up front is it's got stud shooters. Real cool stuff. I do wish there was maybe a little stud shooter function in the back, but maybe that's pushing it a bit too much. Even then, how can you do a proper stud shooting function with such a tiny turret? But I'm getting ahead of myself. But one for the camera. At least that one's easy to find. And one for me. Huh. Neat. But anyways, let's look at the cockpit, which in the older set, the cockpit could just easily detach from the set. And this kind of does. Though it does take a bit of effort to pull, but like so. There it goes. And this actually is convenient because we can get a better look at the cockpit while leaving the ship right here. So that way we don't have to do the heavy lifting. But yeah, let's take a look. Which, as you can see, there's some printing on the windshield, which thankfully that's printing and not stickers. So that way we could be spared of the pain. But anyways, let's look at the inside. You literally got only one seat. And if you watch the show, you notice that the cockpit is able to fit up to 4, maybe more characters. But here, it's only able to fit 1. And you do got a printed piece right here, as you can see, which is just a generic piece that's been used in several different sets. But let's bring Ahsoka in here, so that way you can see how she fits, which she does fit really well. Look at that. And I'm actually curious if Huyang fits. I doubt it, but I kind of want to see for myself, since he's one of the characters that gets in the cockpit. He's kind of like the co-pilot to the set, which, no, he doesn't really fit. But yeah. Another thing worth pointing out is that the old set was able to fit up to 2 minifigures. I mean, maybe it could have fit more, but I at least remember that it fit 2 minifigures. But this only fits 1. Which, that's a bit of a downgrade, but could be worse. Could fit none, but yeah. I do think, like, I'm trying my best not to be negative or about it, which don't get me wrong, this is actually a pretty good set. I do like the way it's built. I do like how I especially like the minifigures and how they're done, which we will get to that. But I just feel like there's just so much that could have been done. I feel like this set could have been a lot bigger, and some parts could have been built a lot better, but that's just me. Either way, I do think this is a pretty good set. Let me actually before we move on to the figures, I'd like to show you like the front view of it with the wings folded up. It's a bit tricky, but let me get the camera in position in the rectangle. I'm trying to do it, but you could see the sides and how they are. And yes, these are stickers, and I'm well aware that for some reason one of them is bent. I don't know why the sticker is bending, but you could just see how it looks with the wings folded and all that. Let's put it from the side. Again, I wish there was some more pieces on the bottom wings, just so that way it looks more detailed, but still. That's just another thing that I wish was done better with the set, but still, don't get me wrong, it's still a pretty good set, but I feel like there's a lot that could have been done better. I mean, there's still some really great things, such as the minifigures, but I just feel like this could have been a bit bigger and better. Maybe we'll get something new for the next season of Ahsoka, since I'm pretty sure that's been confirmed. But anyways, since I mentioned them, let's take a look at those figures, because I think the minifigures really make the set, so let's get straight to it. For the first of our 2 minifigures, we have Ahsoka Tano as well as Sabine Wren, which, as you can see, they both have lightsabers for accessories. Sabine does have more accessories, but we will get to that. We're just going to start off with Ahsoka, which, unlike the rest of the minifigures of the set, Ahsoka is not exclusive to the set, since she does appear in one of the Advent Calendar sets, and I do believe it said that she appears in one of those, like, weird paper bag promos, whatever, but yeah, she's not exclusive to the set. But I do like her arm printing, although I do feel like maybe it should have been done a little bit more so that way it doesn't look cut off, but I suppose that's just the way it's done, and maybe I'm just so used to dual molding and all that, but still, it looks really great. You can see from the side that she does, no minifigures in this set has side leg printing or anything like that, which, let me actually get the lightsabers out the way for now, just so you can get a better look at the minifigures. I do wish that Sabine, on the other hand, did have arm printing to show her Mandalorian armor and all that, but let's take a look at the back, which you can see the back printing is real nice, though I feel like Ahsoka's printing on her back is a little bit light on the orange, but that might be because of the piece it's printed on, which Ahsoka is mostly has gunmetal printing on her torso and legs and even her hands, which I don't think is very common. Even let's take the headpieces off, which on Ahsoka's headpiece, it's interesting because you can see she's got printing and all that, which I find it interesting how it's not like a hard plastic like the original short like it was. It's more of a kind of a hard rubbery piece. Which I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not too keen on rubbery pieces, especially the Leku, which is what these are, what her tails right here is supposed to be called. This is supposed to be called Leku, which I'm not too fond of it, because if I recall correctly, over time rubbery pieces get more loose, and sometimes even the printing fades. Like I remember that happening with my Shock T's Leku, but maybe this is different. One thing I will point out is that this is a useful piece because it eventually gets reused for young Ahsoka. But let's focus on the expressions, which you can see both Sabine and Ahsoka have angry alternate expressions, while their normal expressions are just smirks, which is pretty good. And on the topic of Sabine, she also does come with a Mandalorian helmet. As you can see, it's got some blue, brown, and some metal printing, which is really cool. And she also does come with dual pistols. It's nice to get more of these dual pistols, especially since it kind of reminds me of the Lego 2006 Batman stuff, which is just really awesome. I mean, these figures are really perfect. I mean, I do kind of wish Ahsoka, and keep in mind, Ahsoka is perfect. I mean, aside from the odd printing, I do think she's perfect. Although I do feel like the short Leku I just haven't gotten used to the short Leku in live action. I mean, I understand it's for stunts and all that, but at the same time, I just can't get used to it. I'm so used to her having a longer Leku in Rebels and all that. I mean, I kind of wish Lego went the route that Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga went and gave her the long Leku despite it not being screen accurate, but that's just me. But let's move on. I don't want to sound like a certain individual who's notorious for several things, including their combination of a certain hedgehog and a certain Pokemon, which we don't talk about that in this channel. But anyways, I think these figures are really amazing. I do love the printing, and I do wish Sabine had some arm printing. I think these are just some really awesome figures, and I'm glad we got them in this set. And I think the next figures are even cooler too, so let's take a look at those. For the next and last two figures of the set we have Professor Huyang as well as Marok, which these are some both incredible figures, especially Marok, which we're going to start off with Huyang, who is pretty cool, although I do feel like he should have had some detailing. As you can see, for an accessory, he has a sonic screw. Wait a minute. He doesn't have... No. He doesn't have any accessories in the set. Why does he have a sonic screwdriver in his hand? That just makes no sense. But anyways, he does have some really nice printing on the front, and he does have a little accessory. And as you can see, he does have a little printed piece on the back, which that's meant to be like his little tack, as well as you can see, those two things on the side are supposedly his two extra arms for like building lightsabers or training with Sabine, which I do kind of wish maybe they could have had a little bit of a function, like maybe they could have had like an alternate piece to switch out so that way the arms are out, but I suppose it's okay as is. I know a lot of people say they prefer Huyang be a droid build, which I honestly prefer him be a minifigure build, if anything. Which you could see the back without, and here you can see his back without the accessory, and you could see the wires and all that, and just more of his back detail. As you can obviously tell, he has no side leg or arm printing, and I gotta say his head molding is really cool, though I do feel like it missed out on a few things, and I don't know if it's the version I got, but I feel like his eyes should be raised up so that way they're at the top of his head, kind of like where this darker brown piece is. Like they should be right underneath, like exactly underneath, because otherwise it just looks a little derpy and surprised. And another thing with his head, I do feel like some of the back of his head should be like a bit of a metal printing rather than just straight up tan, because I remember that some of it has like a silverish color rather than just all tan. But one thing I'd like to mention with Huyang's head is his head doesn't entirely go all the way due to the way it's molded, which if you have the neck piece on it, it kind of does, but if you're pressing down and turning it, it won't work. But if you're not, it'll just raise up a bit so that way his head can turn around. However, if you have the neck piece off, it just straight up won't turn around. Like it'll just stop at the shoulders, which even with the neck piece, it won't go a full 360, as you can see. Even with the neck piece, it won't go full 360 properly, but still, I just figure that's worth pointing out in case anyone wants to, like, do something unique or so. I mean, you could still turn his head, just, it's a little bit awkward, but still. I just figured I'd mention that real quick. Either way, I do think the molding is nice. Maybe LEGO will redo this figure, maybe do a little bit of a better job with some of the detailing on his head, but who knows. Anyways, let's move on to Marok, who is a really cool figure, and even though slight spoiler warning, I'm not going to get into details, they didn't have like a huge role as I thought, which hopefully maybe there's like some sort of comic or a mini series that shows a little bit more about them, because I know they made a brief cameo in Tales of the Empire, which I gotta say, this is a really nice minifigure. I do love the armor piece as well as the return of the Inquisitor saber, which this piece was used for the Grand Inquisitor, if I recall correctly, which, albeit with a different printing, which, speaking of printing, I do like the little rust and details on his torso and such. Just real cool. You can look at the back. There's the clip for the lightsaber on the back. You can see. Clips in just fine. You could take the lightsaber blades off, like so. And let's take the headpiece off so that way we can take a look at the back printing and all that, which, as well as the helmet, which is really nice. You can rotate the head in here and there, which is just really awesome, which, if you take the head off, it's just black. No head or anything. No expression, no anything, which he never took his helmet off, so it makes sense. Which, you can take a better look at the torso without the armor piece. Look at that. You can see their armor detailing and all that with the rust and all that. I imagine that's meant to be rust. And there's some more on the back you can see. Yeah, I do love the detailing and such on him. Looks amazing. Overall, despite some minifigures lacking certain detailings, I do think that this set is full of amazing minifigures. I do think that the minifigures save the set in a way. I mean, the set's already good, but I do think this helps save the set even more. I mean, if the minifigures who were missing certain details had their exact details, I think this set would be perfect. Well, if the set had some parts done better, it would be perfect. I'm saying if the minifigures had the details they were missing, the minifigures would be perfect. It would make the set even better. But anyways, I think it's time to close the video out, so let's cut to the outro. Now, I might have been a bit negative about some parts of the set, maybe a little bit more than I should, but still, I do think this is a really nice set. I mean, I do think it could have been built a little bit better. I do think certain minifigures as well as the set could have had a little bit more details, but don't get me wrong, this is still a pretty good set. I do think this is worth adding to one's collection. But as the question goes, would I recommend it? Yeah. But, as per usual, yeah, I know, I keep saying that I would not buy this at full price, but really, I do think that you shouldn't get this for $80. If you're able to get it for like half the price, that's perfect. I do think that like $60 to $40 is a better price range. Maybe not perfect, but better than $80. I know what I say, but I wouldn't buy it at full price. But at the same time, I know I said this in another video, but do you really want to like overspend? I as much as the next person don't want to overspend on a set. As much as I love LEGO, I don't want to overpay. But still, I do think this is a pretty good set, and I would recommend it. Just get it for a reasonable price. It's got some really awesome figures, even though one of them's not exclusive. It's just, I would recommend it. But yeah, I do think this is a really cool set, and I surely would recommend it. But anyways, I think that'll be all for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, all that, because it helps, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a good one!